So we're going to be talking today about Emily's own personal experience with breathwork. To get started, Emily, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I have kind of two backgrounds that I'll touch on, and one is more on the wellness and holistic approach side, and one is more on the professional side. So, as you mentioned, I'm now a breathwork teacher, but have been teaching, yay, but I've been teaching yoga for about 10 years, and as part of that, really have explored other types of modalities like Reiki healing and energy work, um, as well as have done a lot of stuff in trauma sensitive populations. So things like working with folks who are suffering from PTSD, wounded warriors, survivors of sexual violence, through yoga as a way to kind of understand that. And now in DC, I live in Washington, DC, and I teach classes called The Release, which are really focused on moving the body to let go of emotional trauma, just in all forms. So not the super extreme, but that works too. But really for folks who walk around day to day and are constantly bombarded by these moments in our lives that we're not sure like how to process or what to do with. So it's movement based, and it's certainly kind of an interesting collective of movement, explosive movement, and yoga and all that. So that's kind of one side of things.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is in my professional life, where I work at an energy technology startup and run a women in technology company. So I've done a lot of work in marketing and technology, and so that keeps me very busy as well. But I think they balance each other out.
Absolutely. Thanks. Awesome. That sounds great. And can completely imagine how the breathwork is just going to fit so neatly into what you're already doing, which sounds fantastic. I'm excited for
100%.
how that's going to look. We'll have another conversation about how that's going soon.
For sure.
Okay, so before jumping into talking about your own personal experience, could you tell us a little bit about the type of breathwork you do, or explain how that works?
Sure.
There's so many out there.
Yeah, I was just about to say that there's so many types of breath work out there that I think it can be a little overwhelming. And I certainly know for me, it was overwhelming. My first introduction to breath work was through the yoga practice, because you have pranayama, which is, the practice of breath. And there's like, hundreds of different techniques you can use, mostly in and out through your nose.
Mm-hmm.
And the style that I most am attracted to, or the one has worked the most effectively for me, it's not to say that the others are not phenomenal, is a 3-part breath that David Elliott, who is Erin Telford, who's the person that we both worked with, her teacher, really created, which is just in through your belly, in through your heart, and then out through your mouth. And it's just a 3-part pattern. It's really extremely powerful. I think we for folks who have worked with it, it's definitely very potent. But it is really simple. There's no in and out through the nose. There's no hands on your face, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Cool, thanks. Okay, so how did you first come across breathwork, or how did you come across it? How do you get introduced to it? Because it's not talked about a lot, I guess in some circles maybe. So how did you first come across it, and what was your first experience of it?
So this is a funny story, and it's one that I actually try to tell somewhat frequently for new people, because when I first found breathwork, I absolutely hated it. Like, it was one of the worst things I
love
ever
it.
did. This is terrible. And you have to remember, like, I come from like a yoga wellness, like try different things to like heal background. That's like what I kind of ascribed to someone very open-minded, right? Which is just hilarious. So I was working with a coach at the time, a good friend of mine, who she kept telling me, Emily, you have to like get into your body. You have to just like feel what you're feeling. And I, again, so much hubris, was like, I'm fine. Like, I know what I feel. Thanks. Thank you. And then she's like, okay, whatever. But like, at least come with me and try breathwork. I think this might help. So like I said, I live in DC, and we went up to Bethesda, which is not super far north, but it's like for folks who live in the district, you're like, Bethesda, you're going to drive me all the way out. It's really not far. Like, it's just a little bitty piece of the culture of the city. I mean, which is lovely. But so already I was being dragged out to Bethesda on like a Monday night at like 7 or 8 p.m. And so, it was certainly intimidating, but I felt a little comfortable because I knew the person going with me, and she had gone to breathwork. And I remember everyone was so like happy to be there. Everyone was friends with each other, and it was different than like a yoga class. And so already I was like, what is going on? And then we sat in a circle, and the woman who was the instructor really like dug into people a little, which I think is one of the things that really I was like uncomfortable with, which I guess, being uncomfortable with it, or being not like, it was meant to make me feel uncomfortable, truly.
Okay.
So I was already like a little weary, and I didn't know if I liked the teacher. And so I sat down and started breathing. And it was physically painful, like everything, like my body cramped. Like I have never been in so much pain in my life. And like, it's just from breath, like, I mean, if you break a bone or something, that's different. But I was like, what the heck is going on? Yeah. And then afterwards, the meditation was really nice, but I walked away feeling really angry. Like, so I was so angry, I was so frustrated, and I kept blaming it on the instructor. I was like, I don't think I like her. And so what was fascinating about it was, number one, I had a really strong emotional reaction, which was the most interesting thing for me, that I said, okay, why do I feel this way? This is strange. This is interesting. And how is it that these people who I trust, like my coach, like some other friends who I'd known, gone with her, loved it and raved about it. Like, there's got to be something here. And so I kind of stood off the pedal. I thought I was never going to go again. And then my friend again was like, well, just try it one more time. So a couple months passed. Like, I did not go back immediately. And then I went back again, and the same physical reaction happened. I still got a little triggered by the instructor, but I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. I didn't still love it, but I kind of knew maybe there's something here. And then a couple months passed, and then a good friend of mine who was a soul cycle teacher, actually, her name is Kathleen Kielikowski, and she, I take her class all the time, her soul class. I love it. I know that she's a good instructor. I trust her, right, emphatically. And so when she started offering it, I was like, let me just try this with her, because I was blaming the teacher, and that's not right, So let me just give this another shot. So I went to one of Kathleen's sessions. Again, my body cramped. I went right up to her afterwards, and like the look on her face was like, yeah, that's it. Yep, you're releasing fear in your heart, and that's what you're doing here. And I was like, oh, interesting. And she was like, come back, and here's Erin, you should check her out. And like, it was just a really interesting, like very nurturing environment, even though it's equally as painful. And that's like the third time I did it is when I realized there's something really powerful here, and it's not the instructor, it's me. And that's the shit I have to deal with. That's what I'm working through. So yeah, long story short, I did not like it at the beginning, and just, I don't know, something in me just kept going. And now I can't stop doing it. Now, I will say, every time I breathe, I still get a little anxious, because it's really hard. It's hard to face yourself, and it's the unknown, right? As someone who like deals with a lot of control, I think a lot of us do. It's hard to feel out of control. So, it gets easier, and I know how valuable it is. But, if you're feeling a little nervous about it, you're totally not alone.
Yes. And how do you find it translates into your like day-to-day life, or can you see an effect of, having like, is it worth the uncomfortable experience, or what have you noticed?
Oh yeah, I was like, I don't know if you want me to curse on this, but I was gonna say like, F yeah. I mean, when I started doing it more regularly, and regularly meaning like not just once every 3 months, but I would go like, maybe once a month or once every other week or something like that. And really, really, when I started finding the online versions and doing them once a week, sometimes more, even 7 minutes of breath in the morning, like the amount of emotional burden that just came out of me was absurd. I feel like, I'll give you a really potent example. A lot of times, prior to breathing it, and again, I've done a lot of energy stuff, a lot of yoga stuff, nothing quite as potent. I just finished a breathwork session, and a lot of times I will go around my life whether it's like getting in the back of an Uber and kind of being a little closed off and grumpy, or walking into the grocery store and not making eye contact with the teller, you know, whatever it is. I remember this really, really clearly. And I was like, wow, this is going to transform a lot of things for me. I just finished a session. I was going out and I had to pick up some, I don't know, milk or whatever. I don't really know what it was. Something at the grocery store. And I walked downstairs and I was like literally looking at everyone. I was like making eye contact with the front desk, made eye contact and said hello to the homeless person that like stands not too far outside of my apartment, which for me is huge. I often am in so much shame that I don't want to look at them, and it's really hard for me. And I just looked them right in the eye and I was like, good afternoon. Like, what? Who is this human? I went to the grocery store and I was just like friendly with no issues, just like being friendly, being open, being really myself, you know, which seems like maybe a lot of people have that figured out, but I didn't. And it's the small stuff that I feel like it's really shifted that matters. And also like, I think it's normal and natural to feel anxiety or depression in life, especially if you are in like a, you know, full-time job that's pretty stressful. And it's helped me really deal with that. So I feel like in most days, I feel like a different person than I was, you know, even just a year ago. Wow. And I know that sounds extreme, but I wouldn't mislead anybody. It's just, you know,
yeah. I mean, I mean, guess that's why we're so excited about when we do find it, we're like, whoa, where was this? And how is this just my breath? But one thing that strikes me when you're saying how you feel afterwards in the store, it sounds like, or correct me if I'm wrong, is it that you just kind of feel like you're out of your constant chatter in your head and you seem like maybe more in the present, like you're here?
100%. Yeah. And things don't seem to bother you as much. Like I don't get as hooked on a story, you know, in my head of like, I'm not good enough or like this person's gonna not like me or somehow, like, you know, there's a lot of worth, I think, that we work through. And there's so many layers of just crap that we've built up over time, like protection from the outside. And I think what was really real to me was I thought that if I just put on, you know, these stoic faces or just was in my own little bubble, that people wouldn't see me. And therefore, if they didn't see me, then they couldn't do anything to hurt me or throw me off course or whatever. And I think what I realized is like, when you are breathing, you're just a human, you know, like people can see you even if you don't believe that they can. So when you just remove those layers, which for me are, like I mentioned, a lot of like control and like, what do I look like on the outside and how do I show up? When you remove those, which like is what you're breathing through, then all of a sudden that stuff that bothered you for so long doesn't really. And even if you don't quite get the depth of the experience, I had my boyfriend do it with me a couple weeks ago, and you know, he's a pretty close to the chest kind of guy, and I don't think he had maybe as a profound as experience as sometimes I have when I'm like real deep in it and I'm super committed. But he said to me, he's like, I feel really, really relaxed right now. And I feel like that was an out of body experience. And I was like, okay, cool. And he does not do any of this stuff. Like, you know,
that's amazing. I think that's one of the things I notice as well. Like everyone seems to get like one session, like you could be meditating for months and years, which I have done previously. And sometimes it can take months to get to a place where like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little relaxed now after 3 months of meditating every day. But one thing I notice with breathwork is every single time I do it, even when I have the sessions where not really much is happening today, I still get something out of it. And I notice that when I talk to people, that everyone gets something that's like, oh, wow, that was pretty good in some way, sometimes extreme, and sometimes just, wow, I feel really relaxed, or I slept really well last night. I think there's something in the power of the session, of one session, that's, you know, it's almost like getting like so much meditation and just putting like compressing it.
Well, this makes me think of like two things really potently. One is you give as much as you get as much as you give, 100%. If you show up and you're not actually breathing to the fullest and you're not allowing yourself permission to just breathe and you're not allowing yourself permission to just go with it, you're not going to get as intense of a benefit as someone who's like all in, you know? So the first time it might not be that way.
Yeah, because you're going to be protecting yourself a little bit, because
100%.
you're like, what is this? Well, I don't trust this. But the beauty is it's your own breath. So it's not like you've just taken a lot of psychedelics and you've no control over when this is going to end. You can just go back to your normal breath as well. But so it's nice to remember that. But yeah, I can completely understand some people, well, just at the start, of course, it's going to be going a little cautious. So dip your toe, see how you feel. Maybe the next time you feel a bit more comfortable, just letting go.
That's right. No, I think that's totally it. And then I was going to say something about, Erin always says this, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but she talks a lot about how, oh wait, and I just lost it. That's fine. But anyway, so I think it's just a matter of, okay, how do you show up for yourself? Are you actually allowing yourself to be there? And if you are, then great, you know? If you're holding back, your experience might not be as potent, but you can't mess it up. Like there's nothing to mess up here except just showing up for yourself. So I think to me, that's like the biggest thing is, it doesn't have to be a profound experience every time. Like, even if you're not consciously aware, like you're moving through a lot of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I've had like really, sessions that haven't done too much, but then later I'll be feeling something, or later I'll be like getting just these really clear insights or a decision I've been grappling with, like a couple hours later, I'll be like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And I think
like the
for
less
me,
you do,
sometimes it's just getting out of your mind a little bit, just to stop that monkey mind for like half an hour, and then suddenly the answers are there.
Oh wait, and this is the thing I was going to say, I forgot. This was I remember reading this maybe in David's book, or so David Elliott, just for context, is the creator of Breathwork. Yeah. And he has a book called The Reluctant Healer, and then Healing, I think, is the other one. Anyway, one of the things with our training, both Kathy and I had to read those books, or at least Reluctant Healer, to get a sense of like the background of everything. Anyway, so one of the things that I'm pretty sure he says this in the book, although it might be Erin, I don't know, but a lot of times we try to jump right to meditation, and it's kind of like, and I'm taking some liberties here with the explanation, with the analogy, but basically what they're saying is breathwork is the step before you can sit down and just meditate. What I describe it as is like you're going from like high school to a master's degree if you try to sit down and meditate. And there are some people who are just so freaking blessed in this planet that they have enough chill to sit cross-legged and like close their eyes and breathe. I was never able to do that. Like, so what's funny is, and it's like sometimes shameful to admit, but I was teaching and have been teaching yoga for a decade, and I suck at meditation. Like I cannot just sit there and close my eyes. I've tried, Kathy, I have tried every damn thing, and it's just really hard for me. And I get the deepest meditations I've ever had. I finally understand what meditation is about because of breathwork. And this idea that we go from our high school education of like, okay, what life like, or like, take a deep breath if you feel stressed or whatever, to, okay, sit down and close your eyes and don't do anything. We're missing a step. Like you're missing your bachelor's degree, which is breathwork is like the step before. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I can just sit down and meditate for an hour and feel really amazing about it. Maybe. I can certainly do it in a group, but not on my own.
It's true, but it's brilliant just to find what works for you.
I also think that we are in a time period in our existence as humans where we have so much crap coming at us all the time, from telephones, or like from cell phones to all the shit in our environment. And like, I mean, there's just so much stuff happening in our food that we're being constantly pressed more and more, and our lives are getting more stressful, not just like mentally stressful, but our bodies are taking on more stress. And I think in those environments, we need a more potent way to connect with our bodies, like just to clear all the gunk out and just really get in there. And I think that's what breathwork has done for me. And even for folks who are really committed to a meditation practice, I've done this with them, and it's not like it's not a parallel, you might get the same sort of, glimmers of release, because that's just, chemicals releasing in your brain. But in general, like it's just like nothing else. And it can move energy in a lot of weird ways. And I think it's really good for folks who are skeptical because you feel things right away. As long as you commit yourself at least 50%, you might feel some tingling or, you know, moving energy or heat or whatever. Like you'll start opening your mind to what's actually possible in our bodies beyond just, you know, waking up, going to work, sitting down, all that.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Oh, thank you so much. I just love your story because it's just so not the normal story of, oh, it's amazing. And I love that.
At all. It was not
Because
roses,
there's
not
going to be
butterflies.
there is going to be so many people who also experience that. So I love the fact that we can talk about that and the fact that you recognized it. And that's the most important thing is you recognize that it wasn't just the teacher or, you know, it was clearly and you wanted to go back and there's something in you wanted to try it again. So I think that's really cool that you were able to recognize that.
I think there's a level of like curiosity when something makes you, when you walk out and you feel something and you're like,
yeah,
why do I feel so like unnecessarily angry right now? You just, it's hard to like just let that go. So I think you don't have to walk out feeling angry either. You can walk out feeling like that was interesting. I don't know, maybe I'll go back. And like, I really believe that it's like the rule of 3. You know, you've got to try something 3 times before you can say you absolutely hate it or that it's not for you. So that's the biggest thing I would say is like just to be open-minded about that because I almost love people who have a really negative experience the first time. I'm like, great, me too.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. And I kind of hope that, you know, someone watching could be like, oh, I did try that 6 months ago. Maybe I should try it again. So if you had one big piece of advice, would that be it? Or is there anything else you want to kind of share about, like, if someone hasn't experienced breathwork before, is there any kind of other advice you'd like to kind of share?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I know for me were helpful. One, to just go all in. Like if you're going to go. Like if you hold back, first off, you're not going to know whether or not you like it. And number 2, like you might walk out with a nothing experience when like you really could have given yourself more. So like if you're going to go, like come with that open mind and just like put yourself in it because it's 30 minutes of your life. That's literally all you're breathing for. And you can do it. Everyone can. The other thing is I really think that you should bring a buddy for the first time. Or if you're one of those people who's motivated to go or like you feel more comfortable with somebody else. For me, like it's hard for me to show up for myself, but like working on it. But it's much easier for me to show up for somebody else, especially if they're keeping me accountable. So like, you know, grab a buddy. And I always do this, like when I'm going to, not always, but a lot of times I'll post like on Instagram or whatever. Hey, I'm going to this breathwork session. Like if anyone wants to come, let me know. Because not only does it keep me accountable and it keeps me showing up, and not only does it help me share this with somebody else, but it also is like an open invitation for people who are nervous or scared or like unsure about it to be able to talk about it afterwards too. Because not everyone wants to share their experience, but let me tell you, when you have powerful experiences, it's nice to share and nice to share with a friend who is kind of in that as well. So
great. No, that's some good advice. Where can people find you if they want to, you know, maybe they're in the DC area and they want to know when you're going to be teaching and get involved with you?
So the best place to find me is Instagram, as silly as that is. I have a website and everything too, but
and what's your website address?
My website is iwillrelease.com. So that's the release classes and all of the more workshops and more public things that I do. But if you want to just keep up to date with like where am I teaching, like what's going on this week, I post on personal Instagram probably far too much, but I found it really a way to connect and get people up to date with everything. So that's just my first name and last name. So Emily Rasowsky, and that's just the at Emily Rasowsky.
Awesome.
Which maybe you'll like type up my name so people will see it.
It's actually on the screen, but I'll put the links. I'll put the links below as well, so people can just click right through.